Go ahead and call a meeting to order. We recorded. We recorded. Okay.
You want this for
I'll just take a roll call just for the sake of putting it on the recording. My name is Brad Kahn. I'm the chairman. Tom Vaughn.
Here.
Andrea Kellogg.
Here.
Nate Troyer.
Here.
And Kelly Hoppy.
Here.
I just realized I put Kelly.
I know, I was gonna tell you, we need to correct the minutes.
I looked it over. Got it.
I'll go by
Sorry
Callie
about
today.
that.
That's all right.
So there's no visitors. So I'll just kind of cut to the update from ODNR.
Okay.
The ODNR, which is the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, that is a grant that is frustrating me immensely. The grant submissions were due June 1st, or they're due June 1st. But the problem is that the legislative body that allocates money for the counties in the state of Ohio have not determined the allocation yet. They haven't appropriated any money for the park funds. So in the past, I believe last year there was like $22,480. What to expect for this year, I don't know. I called down this morning and I spoke to a gentleman I've had contact with, and they are actually having discussions about extending the grant submission beyond June 1st. And they still have not allocated any money to fund the grant. So where we're at right now, that we talked about using grant funds to pay for some of the pickleball expenses, and the estimates you have in front of you, and I wanted to go over those. For 2 pickleball courts, and this is at the existing location of where the current tennis and pickleball courts are located. For 2 pickleball courts, the estimate was $28,901. For 4 pickleball courts, it was $39,654. The plan was to compile all this data, including emails, and include that information on the grant request and submit that by June 1st. Nate and I had a game plan on how we were going to accomplish that. So let's just say for purposes of discussion that the June 1st deadline doesn't change. If we submitted a grant request by June 1st, they're not going to let us know until October of this year. They're not going to make their announcement until then. Assuming that it's going to be, the grant submission date is going to be continued down the road, it's going to be later in the year. So my point is, by the time we get all the contracts, all the paperwork signed and everything, it's going to be the middle of next year to proceed on this. The other downside to this is if anybody else, if any other entity applies for the grant, let's say Killbuck applies for the grant and they receive more points than we do, because it's all based on a point system as far as how it's submitted. If they ask for the entire allocation, or any other entity does, then we don't get anything. It's over. It's not, well, we'll give half to Millersburg and we'll give half to another entity. The only way that could happen is if another entity decided that they only needed $10,000, for example, then they would consider allocating or giving us whatever amount to take care of the balance of the amount appropriated for Holmes County. So we have, I listed some options down here, and there's more options than this, but if we're specifically focusing on pickleball, we could apply for the grant and ask for 4 pickleball courts. And it would be next year sometime until we could move forward. Or we could apply for 2 pickleball courts. Same thing would apply, and the installation would be sometime next year. Or we could proceed with the installation of 2 or 4 pickleball courts. There's money appropriated in the parks account for up to $45,000 to spend for Airport Park. Instead of applying for the grant funds for pickleball courts, we could move forward, spend the money that's been appropriated for Airport Park, and we could apply for grant funds for basketball, the basketball hoops, and a concrete slab down there. And we could work on getting an estimate through Vasco and another vendor. So there's also a number of emails that have been brought to my attention. The vast majority of them are very supportive. Well, they're all supportive of pickleball, but there is a concern about the utilization of the current ball field down there, and that it needs to be upgraded for some of the softball tournaments and the softball youth and other softball teams that utilize that field. And I think what needs to be done is we need to reach out to people like Tony Roberts, who has suggested that there's a need to upgrade, you know, that ball field. And I reached out to her, I gave her some feedback, but I'd like to meet down there and actually get some more feedback and get really specific with what needs to be done with that ball field. There's also a walking path that there was some discussion on that leads from the parking lot to the tennis courts, ball field, and I believe, is it the restroom facilities? Or maybe I'm mistaken on that.
The new one would.
The new one would, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's at a cost of $90,000. And we can have discussions about how you want to proceed, if you want to proceed on that, and how. But I guess what I propose to do is I would like to, based on the feedback that I've gotten and in the last 3 years in talking about pickleball courts and trying to add on to what we have currently, I would like to use the appropriated money to move forward with 4 additional pickleball courts and look into the grant through ODNR to provide funding for the basketball courts. Because as it stands right now, the existing basketball courts would have to be turned around. They'd have to be turned around and they'd have to face, let's say, H&R Block. Then you'd have to put a concrete slab down behind the fence. And there's room to do that.
So that would eliminate the basketball courts until next year?
So I reached out to Matt Wilson. I called him last Friday. He's the one that went down. He's the one that gave the estimate through Vasco. I said, Matt, I said, what if you received a call from Village Council or the Village of Millersburg, let's say in the next week, and they told you to proceed with the pickleball courts? What's the soonest you could get this done? And he said August, September of this year. And I said, what if we asked you to try to move on it quicker? Would that change anything? He goes, Brad, we're so busy. We're so busy. No, the August, September timeframe is pretty much it. So, but they could start working on that, and there's about a 2-week gap that they would need from the time they start till the time they finish, because of the surface that they have to put on down there. But that would include the fencing, the painting, and the posts that they need to put 4 pickleball courts in place.
I have some concerns. No grant is ever a done deal.
No, it's not.
You know, we could apply for grants for the next 5 years and get 0 of them. So I know that no grants are a done deal. But money was raised for the disc golf. Money was raised for the dog park. Money was raised for most of 90% of the things that are out at Deer Run money was raised for those things. And I guess my thing is, we have spent so much money on the pickleball courts already, tax dollars, that I know that people are wanting more pickleball courts, but if we spend this $45,000 and apply for the grant for the basketball court, that leaves 0 to do any fixing of the ball field, of the concession stand, of the things that we have down there that are our responsibility to take care of. And I know one of the things Tony said that was the backstop was a mess. The storage shed, the concession stand, and he said they do not have the funds to fix those. So I guess my comment would be, when it's kids, we can't ask kids to fix the backstop, but we can ask adults if they want more pickleball courts to make a donation, I guess. I guess that's where I'm coming from, is I know that there seems to be this huge inundation with pickleball, but I think that having things for the kids that is in good repair, it should be just as important, I guess. That's my opinion.
If we do 2 pickleball courts, do the basketball court stay in place?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
I
like
wouldn't
taking
see
the
why
basketball
not.
courts away. I don't like taking the basketball. I'm newbie on this, but I still see this as all we're focusing on is pickleball. When we have softball, we have a great girls softball team right now, if anybody's paying attention.
Yeah,
And we have
and it
kids that play
starts
basketball.
when they're playing down at the park.
I feel like either we find a way to divvy up the $45,000 on different things, and then, like we say, if they want to raise, I just am not comfortable with $45,000 going all to pickleball. I'm not comfortable with that.
I'm not part of this committee, but I want to throw my 2 cents in. If other council members would have went out to the fairgrounds for that grant, I think there's more than the Department of Natural Resources.
I think there is too.
For grants,
I think there is too.
a lot more.
But again,
No guarantee.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
grants
No,
out
yeah.
there, but it's not a done deal.
I
No.
see kids playing basketball when I'm sometimes at East Chicago.
Yeah.
So I see people playing pickleball, but I also see kids playing basketball.
Well, and that field down there is really getting utilized, not just by softball teams,
No,
but t-ball teams, baseball teams. It is getting utilized. We could
Yeah.
use more ball fields in Millersburg,
Yeah.
and they would get used as well.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that there's a lot of people that are clamoring about pickleball, but yeah,
I think we have the hard surface down there, and it's there, it's available. I think there's gonna be a need down the road. We can certainly meet in the middle, whatever this committee decides, we're gonna have to take it to village council, but, I don't wanna do away with the basketball courts. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that if we expand to 4 pickleball courts, that we're gonna have to reposition the basketball courts, and we're gonna have to make a separate area for that. I don't know what it would cost for an additional backstop for that field. I can't imagine that that's going to be such a costly thing that maybe in addition to the 4 pickleball courts, we can pay for whatever backstop is needed for that field. I don't know what other things need to be done to that field to bring it up to the condition that would be sufficient in the eyes of the teams that are playing. I guess we need to have those conversations. And I've seen the concession stand. The concession stand was a wreck when I saw it.
What do you think that the concession stand needs?
Well,
Aside from being cleaned out?
aside
Well,
from,
the window, you said something about a window or something
Well,
about a window moved.
Nate, you were
And I did
approached.
find out that all that stuff was in there because they were having trouble with critters getting into the storage part,
Oh,
the other building by the restroom, so they put all their equipment in the concession stand because it's secure.
secured.
And I think that's what he's talking about,
Yep.
the storage shed.
Oh, so if the storage shed were secure, then
The equipment would be
the
over
equipment
there.
would be there rather than
Yeah.
in the concession stand.
Yeah, he had talked about a window on the field side.
And that makes sense.
The
I
window
mean,
faces north and the field's to the east, so you can't see, people in the stand can't see what's going on.
I'm surprised people have put up with it that long
I know.
and haven't complained about it.
I think the thought was that
Two
there used to be
fields.
2 fields.
She
Well,
could
that
hang out.
backfield is so
Yeah.
wet, it's not usable anymore.
But Nate, is it realistic to think that the fields that are down there, that's it? I mean, to put any additional field down there,
I think you could get a T-ball field in the grass
On the
if you
upper?
start up by Millersburg Electric. Put home plate there and face them back to back.
Yeah.
The T-ball field doesn't have to be very big. There's enough of a dry area there. I think you could easily get an infield. They don't need much of an outfield. Just, and then a backstop and some fences down the baselines, a couple benches, and you're good. Which would also offer a practice facility for somebody. They couldn't necessarily play 10U games there, but they could practice there.
Practice, right.
So, which I can tell you is tough to find practice spots for all these teams.
Yeah, we used to go to people's, when Graydon played, we'd go to people's farms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our church league, we used to go down to that half field down behind the
Behind the
elementary
elementary
school.
school, we did
Yeah.
that, we
Yeah.
go to
We
people's
went down there and
farms, we
practiced.
go
A
to
lot of people
people's
go out there.
farms.
My other concern or fear, I don't know. There's some thought about, do you try to elevate the backfield to save it? But I think it's a losing battle. That water, what stays wet just keeps creeping. 15, 20 years, 30 years, I don't know how much of that is gonna still be usable.
I'll throw in here. On the concession stand, if you put a window in, which would be the east side,
Mhm.
there's not much room there between the fence and the concession stand now.
It wouldn't be a serving window.
Oh,
Just a
Yeah,
watching.
Just
Watch.
They can
I
watch.
gotcha.
Just a
Yeah.
window,
Okay.
yeah, just a window to
Yeah.
be able to see.
Like the
it.
concession stand out at the high school, there's a back window so we can watch the softball games when the parents when we had to be in there, we could still
Right.
watch our kids
And
play.
that's who's usually working.
Yeah,
is-
that's who's working is the
The
parents,
parents.
usually, yeah. Yeah.
They did have it opened up 2 weeks ago, Saturday. It was cleaned out, ready to go. They were serving some items out, nothing major. But
that was a disaster when I
Drinks
saw it,
and
so I'm
bag
glad to hear
things.
that.
Do you have any idea of what it would take to redo the backstop at the main field and,
I'm not sure. I've been down there a lot this spring practice, and I'm not real sure what all needs done there. Whether it's just stretching and tightening things up, or there was some talk about actually putting like material netting or whatever on all the backstops to discourage people from standing back there.
yeah.
I'm not sure if that's what he's talking about, or if there's actual, I didn't notice any holes or, you know, where it could come up or anything.
I always got nervous, little kids wanted to put their
Yeah.
fingers in,
Yep,
you
that's
know.
what they're
Well, after
trying to-
backstop, he wrote fencing.
Fencing, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'd have to go look at it specifically to see what,
Okay.
The only thing I've ever noticed, it just needs a paint job.
yeah, it's older.
Yeah,
I don't think it's in bad shape that I can,
I wouldn't say it's bad, no.
So folks, again, you look at the estimates, 29,000 for two, about 10,000 more for two more. That's what this committee has to decide on, but we don't have to decide on anything. We can leave it alone and not do anything. That's not what I'm advocating for. That's not what the feedback is in this community. I think that when people hear that I'm chairing the Parks Committee to reach out to me, and you know, I have an interest in, I guess, doing as much as we can to support the people that have an interest in that sport. And it's not just for adults, it's not just for the elderly like some people talk about. It's for kids and adults of all ages. I just don't want to fall short on this. And I understand the position of not wanting to spend almost $40,000 for that, but that's the need down there. The need and
Is it the
for
need
softball.
or the want?
I think it's both. I think that the people that have reached out to me, they're concerned about, you know, their, that's what they're choosing as their activity for exercise.
Well, I'll give you an example respectfully, that you can go out to the golf course and you aren't gonna get on, if it's packed out there, you're not gonna get on a hole. So, it's kind of comparable. They wanna get on a pickleball court and they're packed. But if you wanna play golf, you have to arrange a time to play golf. You aren't gonna necessarily get on a tee. And that's a sport that people wanna play. I mean, it may not be apples to oranges, but
Well, I mean, you can call the clubhouse and you can arrange for tea time. That's quite a bit different than showing up and, you know, there's nobody down there that's manning, you know, the courts down there to say, yeah, you can play at such and such time. You know, I got an email from a lady who said, you know, I brought my kids down there and the pickleball courts were full. And, you know, people are forced to go to Loudonville to play pickleball, or they're forced to go to Lake Buckhorn to play. Churches are opening up their gymnasiums. I just found out at church this past Sunday, I was invited to play pickleball on Tuesday night. They're gonna tape up the gymnasium and play pickleball out there. Two courts are better than what we have. Two additional courts are. I'm not gonna argue that. And I agree that there's times where you gotta meet in the middle. But I think that by not going the 4 route, I think that we're selling ourselves short. And we have the opportunity to do it. We have the opportunity to do it now. We certainly have the opportunity to do it again in the future. I don't know if the price is going to be, you know, the same or more or what, but you're looking at $10,000, $11,000 difference to add an additional 2 more courts.
But it's $5,500 gonna, and I guess we don't know, so it's hard to make a decision if $5,500 is enough to cover the other things that we need. So, I
No, I
guess,
understand that.
I agree with you, Tom. I would rather go the 2 route, even though, you know, it's 10,000 more for 2 more, but at least that is leaving us some money to do things. I mean, my kids played softball, I played softball. Softball's gonna be there just as long as pickleball's gonna be there. So I understand that too, and so, you know, I know that, you know, whatever you do, that's where your heart is, and I get that, but I think that the 28.9 leaves us room to do things with the field and still be able to maybe work on the shed and work on the concession stand as well, rather than the 4 is gonna leave us with, we'll have one option to do anything after that.
I mean, if we could get an estimate on everything and figure out.
And have an
that
idea,
it's only $5,000.
For
even if
everything.
Even if it's 7,
yeah,
and at that point, we could maybe appropriate a few $1,000s more
right.
to make, then it would make sense.
Then it would make sense to do
Right.
the 4, that's true.
But,
We may have a few thousand laying, you know, we can finagle
yeah.
around with contractual and whatever that we may be able to pull off.
But if the work on doing a T-ball field and what we need to do with the softball field is $11,000, then
Right.
Right.
Yes,
we're a lot
I agree.
further off.
So it would be better for us to know what needs fixed, what needs taken care of, how much that's gonna be, for us to make a good decision on.
I'm not sure a couple of weeks is gonna make much difference, I'm assuming, to Vasco to get, I mean, we're talking at the end of the year anyhow, so I'm
Right.
not sure.
If we could wait till the next meeting and to discuss it again, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna say, let's do it 2 courts and then it's only $4,500 to do all the repairs we need to do.
Right. Right.
Then I think that's a bad decision, but if it's $11,000, then 2 courts is a no-brainer.
Is a good decision.
Yeah.
So,
Don't think we have all the facts to make
Yeah.
an
thank you.
informed
I put
decision.
you a note over there too. Yeah, I agree, and if we could figure out how much it's gonna cost to do the things that we need to do down there with the things that we already have, then we could make a better decision as to 2 or 4 courts. When did he need to know the answer to this, Brad, do you know?
He didn't say.
He didn't say?
No. I said we're having a meeting and I said, I don't know what direction things are gonna go, but, no, I gave him kind of a, you know, what if scenario, and we didn't talk about deadlines or anything, so.
I think we need to get with Tony and see what all he's
Yeah,
looking at, so we're all on the
there's-
same page.
There's some merit to that, I agree with that. And it could be, I mean,
It may be things we can do internally.
yeah,
And if it is, then we'll just go with the 4, and that's fine.
but what,
The other thing to remember though is if we go 4, we gotta do something for basketball.
Yeah, we
now.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we
what I
do.
said.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
2, you aren't affecting the
Nope.
basketball, but 4, that's, and I'm not,
No,
I don't care either
I had
way.
said
But that
that
makes a
also.
difference.
I had
It
said
makes
that,
a
I didn't want to get rid of
difference if you're looking
basketball.
at pouring a new pad and putting up new hoops,
Yeah.
potentially, or using the existing if you turn it 180.
Can you apply for 2 grants for the same thing? I'm talking about maybe Omega can find something or somebody. Just like, what is it, the agricultural whatever out of Maslin that has
USDA.
grants available?
Yeah.
And I got
I
them.
don't, do they do anything recreational though?
Yeah. They do all
Really?
kinds of stuff which surprised me.
Huh. Okay.
Omega would know, though.
I don't
I
know how
guess
much
you
information you got.
Good, and
when we were
withdraw
out there.
one if you hear on the other.
do you see any, or much of any expense with the restroom facility down there?
I don't, no.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been,
Yeah, I didn't either, I mean,
the buildings are pretty sound.
Yeah, they were.
They're not modern by any means, but they're functional and they're in pretty good shape. I think they're fine for a public park.
Yeah, it's not a hotel.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Still still need a water fountain there.
We can probably do that,
We talked about it last year, the year before.
Didn't we
Yeah.
talk about a prison water fountain?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the
So
problem
just to think out loud, so the direction, you know, and that makes sense, you know, is to pursue looking at additional estimates for the softball field, the backstop, and you're gonna reach out to Tony then on that?
Yeah, we'll
or-
figure out a
Okay.
time.
And then maybe reconvene when we have that information.
The
So-
T-ball court, would we do a good portion of that internally?
I would
Except
think,
for fencing and
other
stuff.
than fencing, I would
Yeah.
think we could, yeah. And strip the topsoil and,
Yeah. Pull it off,
We're talking
rig it
about
out.
basketball
Yeah.
courts. Yeah.
Couldn't we apply for grants for the walkway,
yeah.
parking lot?
Mhm.
So as far as the walkway, what are your thoughts on the walkway from the parking lot to the park?
I-
Try to get,
What was the cost?
try to get
90,000,
raised funds
90?
for that, or
almost
what?
91,000.
I would go for grants first, see what we could get.
I think it's like everything else down there, it's better than what it used to be, but it
Yeah.
could
It is.
definitely be improved.
I mean, I've seen people trying to push wheelchairs across the
Yeah, we
field.
tried to push my father-in-law when my girls, when Maris was playing farm league down there, it's park league down there, and no, he had to sit up at Dairy Queen in the car and watch because we couldn't get his wheelchair through there. But that would be nice because
Mhm.
there are kids in wheelchairs that wanna go down and
Right.
watch their siblings and watch their cousins and adults as well, and I think that would open that up, that possibility that they could actually be there to see instead of sitting clear up in a car.
How wide was this again? I can never remember.
We had figured
the
it
width.
at 10.
Asphalt.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was in their email.
Is that because that's how wide their,
That's one of the things I'd asked Melway about.
their
He
truck
said they can
is?
go as narrow as 8, they prefer 10.
10.
I just figured 10 because, I'm just thinking, you know, people coming and going,
Mm-hmm.
gives them plenty of room, there's wagons, strollers, wheelchairs, whatever. You don't want like a 4-foot path or people having to get off to let people through.
So what's the consensus on how we accomplish this path? So are you suggesting that we use that ODNR grant and maybe something else that's out there to apply for that?
You're looking at me?
I'm looking at anybody.
Well, I think before we think about what we're gonna use the ODRNR grant for, we need to find out what needs to be done with the fields and the storage shed and that kind of thing, so that we know what we're looking at with what we can get done this year. Because no matter what the grant, I mean,
Past history, nobody else in the county has ever applied for that.
Oh, yeah.
That, they had the OD,
Killbuck has received quite a bit of money from that grant.
pardon?
Killbuck.
I know Berlin Township's used it.
I think Winesburg has
Winesburg.
received it before.
The last time, maybe it's not the same one then. It was another grant. And maybe that was more or less through the county that were distributing the money, or, and they said nobody was using it.
Okay.
I think at the last meeting, it was mentioned that there was a $500,000 grant, but a 50% match.
That's for one later on in the year.
Yeah, I mean, does it not make more sense to, I don't know when that's due and when that's, but maybe for next year to do the path with that funding, if we're
Mhm.
Probably.
successful with that, and then plan the match accordingly.
I wonder if we could look at adding just resurfacing the parking lot too. The grant, cause it could be done.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
So could we find out what's gonna be needed for the other things down at the park and meet before the next council meeting? And that way you'll have a direction before, you know, it'll be a little less than a month, but you'll still have some time to get the grant in for whatever, whether it be basketball court or whatever.
From,
Does that make sense, Brad?
yeah.
It does,
Yeah,
that's,
Well, yeah.
I thought that's who it was.
that's not a lot of time to.
I know, it's
work
not,
on
it's
that.
not a lot of time, it's not a lot of time, but
Well, next time I see Dave,
would it,
you guys have the same parents?
it would give us a better direction, cause like
But
Tom
if they
said.
extend, if they extend the submission date, that'll
Then-
make a difference too, so.
Right,
Hi, Bobby.
yeah.
Good.
Okay, I think for purposes of this discussion, I think we
I
know
won't bug you
what
until
direction we need to
Thursday.
go, and is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign if you're opposed. Thank you.